Happy Monday. We are currently testing to see if you guys will be able to hear me and all that good jazz, and then we'll switch this from unlisted to public. As you know, I always start my streams in unlisted. That way I can check to see the sound is going before I turn them to public. So if you are watching a pre-recording of this, just give it a few moments and you'll see me switch this over to public. Yes, and we have confirmed it is working. So with that, we are now public. Thank you guys so much for joining. Again, happy Monday. I hope you all are doing well. Please take a moment to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. On a side note, let's go Bears. I'm a huge Chicago fan, as many people know. So, I'm not a huge football fan. I really don't follow football, to be honest. But I am a huge Chicago fan. Anything that is happening in Chicago that is good for Chicago makes me happy. And in this case, Chicago Bears doing so well. I guess you're taking on Green Bay. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. All right, guys, let's give it a few minutes. Let's wait to see who joins. One thing, so I was debating talking about this. I was considering talking about geometry, but I think I might talk about James Monroe and the Monroe Doctrine. Now, I like to be careful because I don't want people to assume or believe that, because again, a lot of conspiracy theories are out there that imply that Freemasonry are, running the political show, which they're not, or that to be a Freemason, it's you become the president or any of that nonsense, right? I don't want to deal with any of that nonsense. But there have been presidents who have been Freemasons. 14 or 15 is kind of the standard number. James Monroe was one of them, and famously, the Monroe Doctrine has made its way into the news lately. So I thought it might be kind of fun to talk about James Monroe, he was actually the second Masonic president, the first Masonic president after George Washington. So it might be worth talking about him a little bit and talking about maybe even the Monroe Doctrine as well, because obviously this has become such a major deal in politics with Venezuela. I did talk about Venezuela and Freemasonry as well. So Venezuela has a really cool history with Freemasonry. Simon Bolivier, very important figure in Freemasonry and in the history of Venezuela. So yeah, but for now, we give it some time and we see who joins. The first hour, I tend not to talk about anything specifically. I just hang out and chat. Hello, Mr. Keeps on Ticking. I hope that you're doing well. Thank you for being here. I hope that, you're almost, I was going to say you're almost done your vacation, but I guess not quite yet. So I hope you're still enjoying it, or not vacation, your trip, your travels. Pick your term. Pick your term. Grind underscore 111. With a name like that, because being a Freemason, it's wonderful, but can also be a grind. I've been a Freemason since 2007, so almost 20 years. I don't know everything about Freemasonry, but I can at least share with you what I do know, as well as share with you my perspectives, which is different than knowledge, right? Knowledge is knowing that the Grand Lodge of England was founded in 1717, Premier Grand Lodge of England. Perspective is, whether I think the ancients or the moderns were more correct in their view of Freemasonry and the consequences of the reunification. Either way, grind. Thank you for being here. Please hit that subscribe button if you're new to the stream. Well, YouTube Stabworthy, many people would agree with you. There's been this whole recent thing now that the biggest problem with Bruce Wayne slash Batman is that he should have just paid more in taxes and funded better health and mental health systems. I don't know. I will say I love Batman. He's my favorite comic book character. He's really the one that I actually enjoy, like the movies. I never really got into Marvel, never into Superman. I always did enjoy Batman though. So yeah, Batman, by the way, is a Freemason, at least according to the comic book lore. Thank you, YouTube. Yeah, Mr. Keeps, I figured you're probably working remotely. I figured based on the type of job you have, you probably could work remotely. So, but still, it's still, I'm sure, nice to, I think, have a view of the mountains or whatever it might be while working. If I recall correctly, you're in the mountains. So I hope that you enjoy the view. I didn't. I should. I forget the name of that. I mean, I talked about it once briefly. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a Freemason, famously. Sherlock Holmes story. He was a Mason. He was good friends with Harry Houdini, and then they got into a dispute because Sherlock Holmes believed in fairies and the supernatural, and Harry Houdini did not. And they got into a kind of a big dispute. I always bring that up to remind people Freemasons do not all believe in the same thing, right? It's not as though there's one perspective that all Masons are forced to share. Well, not just fairies. He believed in a lot of, I would say, foolish things. So, the Red-Headed League, the Valley of Fear, The Adventure of the Norwood Builder, A Study in Scarlet, Adventure of the Retired Colorman, Musgrave Ritual. There you go. Well, do your chores, Dad. Do your chores. Well begun is half done. So do your chores, but good to see you. Not sure what that means, curbing stomp. What are the choices for my lodge? Do you mean all the different offices available in my lodge? Because I have been all of the offices in multiple lodges. So, yeah. So I'm not sure what practice all the choices for the lodge means. Have I been in all the offices? Yes, so I'm a member of actually 5 Masonic lodges, which is crazy to think it's been that long. I'm a member of 5 Masonic lodges, but I've been all of the offices. Actually, that's not true. In no lodge have actually been all the offices now that I think about it. But between all the lodges I'm a member of, I've made it to being all the lodges. So all the offices, I should say. So in the 3 Masonic lodges where I live, I've been the junior warden, senior warden, worshipful master. I've been the secretary of a lodge, never been the treasurer, been the steward, been the inner guard, been the deacons, never been a master of ceremonies. There's a lot of different offices that I've never been, but it's rare for somebody to actually be every office if you include the administrative offices. Actually, that would be a really fun episode to do. To talk about, absolutely, Mr. Keeps gives you something to brag about. To talk about the difference between, in my opinion, the types of offices that exist within a Masonic lodge, right? Because there does exist, what I would describe as administrative offices, secretary, treasurer, assistant secretary, historian. Then there are ceremonial offices. I would describe the IPM, the organist, the master of ceremonies to be ceremonial offices. And then you have your cursus, your lodge course offices. So that would be um, for example, your stewards through to worship through to senior warden, and then you have the worship master, which in my opinion is the one office that combines all three. It is ceremonial, it is administrative, and it is a lodge administration office. So yeah, I think it'd be really fun to talk about the different offices, the type of offices they are, why it is that they are relevant or important, and why you need to pay attention to the duties of each. Um, Linking Alice, it is going well. Medical sciences, it is going well. I am a chapter of York Rite. All right, York Rite is awesome. Um, York Rite is a great part of the fraternity, whether it be York Rite, Scottish Rite, um, York Rite, Scottish Rite, Shrine. They are all wonderful parts of the Masonic family. The important thing to keep in mind is they are part of the Masonic family. One of the biggest mistakes people make, I talk about this a lot, is this assumption that, for example, the 33rd degree in Freemasonry is the highest degree in Freemasonry or the most important degree. That's not how it works. The most important or highest degree in Freemasonry is the third degree. Maybe I know a bunch, maybe I know none. I will not confirm nor deny whether there are any quote unquote secret handshakes. What I always say is there are modes of recognition, and the modes of recognition are something that are kept private or within Freemasonry. But Carlos, can you hit the like and subscribe button? Well, Mr. Keeps, you gotta be a part of the first 3 degrees first. But yeah, we got some York Writers in the house. York Rite, like I said, I never joined it. One of my best friend, probably my best friend in the world, to be honest, both within and without Freemasonry. He was York Rite. I believe he's going to be going back to it shortly. He left to focus more on craft lodge, but yeah. Royal Arch. Well, I don't think you can say that, Mr. Keeps. I don't think that's how it works. Right now we're just talking about the same thing we always talk about, Freemasonry. About an hour in, I may start talking about James Monroe, president, and also Freemason. He was the second president to be a Freemason, the first, of course, being George Washington. He was initiated on November 9th, 1775 in Williamsburg, Lodge number 6. He was actually initiated at the age of 17, which I did not know, which is interesting because presently, at least since I've been a Mason, the minimum age to join Freemasonry was 18. Doug Dillner. I am a traveling man. Doug Dillner. Well, I mean, for me personally, it kind of, it wasn't really planned out. So I joined my mother lodge, Windsor Lodge 403, and my intention and plan was to just remain a member of that lodge forever, and exclusively that lodge. But then another lodge was struggling, Harmony Lodge, and I decided to join that one to see if I could help them out. And then Border Cities Lodge, where I'm currently worship a master, was also struggling. And again, I decided to join that one to help it out. And then the other 2 lodges, so one of them is a lodge out of Israel. And after October 7th, I wanted to support my brethren in Israel, not saying anything about the government of Israel one way or the other. That's a whole different can of tuna. But the people in Israel, especially my Masonic brothers, I wanted to support them. So I thought joining a Masonic lodge there was a way to demonstrate at least some support. And also the type of lodge it's called Lodge Holy Land number 50. They are set up to welcome in brethren or affiliates from around the world. And then I also joined Tranquility Lodge number 2000 out of Texas for the same reason. Because, well, in that case, it was the lodge is named after Tranquility Valley and the moon landing, in honor of Buzz Aldrin. And I love the connections between Freemasonry and space exploration and geometry and all that good jazz and science and advancing science. So I joined as a show of support. Um, so Riz, I can't pronounce your name. Riz Highland Momo line. Please hit like and subscribe. So Freemasonry is not a religion. It is open to men of, or women for that matter, but men of all different faiths, whether they be, we have Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, indigenous. We have all different types of faiths represented within Freemasonry. In terms of why be a part of Freemasonry, I mean, Riz, and by the way, Riz, please hit that like button and please hit that subscribe button. There is no like one reason. Some people join because they want to be part of their family or they want to be closer to their family. So they may have had grandparents, great grandparents, a father who was a Freemason, and joining makes them feel closer to him. Some may join because they like the idea of being part of historical society. Some may join because they're new to a country, new to a community, and they want to make new friends. And Freemasonry can kind of be a way to, not a shortcut, but a way to find friends and to make friends. Some join for confidence reasons, like but part of being a Freemason is there are certain skills you need to develop or you can develop. Some join because they've seen National Treasure and thought the movie was cool. So, there's many different reasons. So 96, Freemasonry and Israel are linked. Well, so Carlos Campos, I mean, a lodge does not have to be in a physical building. It almost always will. The lodge refers to the group of people, right? Not the building. So I'm a member of Windsor Lodge 403. That's a reference to a group of people, all of whom belong to that same group. Now they have to meet somewhere. As a general rule, they will meet in a designated space, in a designated building, sometimes colloquial called a Masonic Temple, but could be called a Masonic Hall, Masonic Center, or it could be a private area that they rent out, for example. So it could be a building that doesn't belong to them, just a space they rent. But there have been some lodges that have done special meetings or special events outside in a field. Sometimes they have cave degrees. But you do need somewhere to meet. Seth, that is crazy. There's many things wrong with, I mean, by definition, the word betrayal is something wrong. So don't betray people. So 96, Civic, that is really not the case, at least in my experience. Please hit like and subscribe. I mean, Freemasonry, pick your date, but let's use for the time being, Freemasonry evolved June or began June 24th, 1717 in London at the Goose and Gridiron. Israel existed, 200 and something years after the fact? I'm not going to say, again, Israel or Zionism, if you want to use that term, those are political entities, political ideas. Freemasonry is not political. So there are some Freemasons who may support the state of Israel, some who may not. You'd have to ask each one. Afternoon, Brother Michael Moore. Been a while. Oh, Michael, I want to mention to you, Friday, January 16th, we've got a pretty big event happening at the Windsor Masonic Temple. We have an installation for my mother lodge, and we have a very special guest. So I hope you can make it down, you and your Masonic brothers. There's a dinner beforehand, but the event itself starts at 7:30. Well, I don't know anything about Scientology, so I can't speak to that. John, I'm doing well. Riz, that's a good question. Anything important? And by the way, Michael, you're welcome to answer these questions as well. Anything important? Honestly, no. Like I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. So, yes, Michael. So obviously you need to be of the correct age, right? And so you need to be at least 18 in the States, or at least 21 in most jurisdictions in Canada. You need to believe in a supreme being. But beyond that, what I would say is you approach the lodge, you express an interest, and you go from there. Don't approach it with the desire to necessarily join right away. That's not how it works. Rather, what you should be doing is just approach them with an interest to learn more. Because the process, it may happen quickly, it very likely may not. Patience is a virtue. Get to know them. Go out for coffee with them. Maybe they have dinners, special events, whatever it might be. Get a chance to know them well before you proceed, right? And then beyond that, just enjoy the process. I would say don't try to read up too much on the specifics of the rituals or the ceremonies because that will kind of ruin it for you a little bit. It's better to kind of go in and instead of with pre-expectations or going in with expectations, go into your degree kind of with an open mind and just trying to pay attention. That is the most important thing. Are there social responsibilities once you join? Um, I'm not really sure what it would mean by social responsibilities. I mean, so Freemasonry, I mean, because it's a civic organization, it's voluntary, and really the responsibilities therein are voluntary as well. Certainly, Freemasonry, it encourages you or you're expected to be a good citizen. I'm not going to divulge, I can't divulge the guest. Let's just say if you come, it'll be a good guest. So, um, I am a Freemason. I don't smoke pot. Most I know do not. So, um, so as a Freemason, you're expected to be a good citizen. You could call that a civic responsibility. That also means obey the laws of the country in which you live or in which you're traveling to or visiting. Because Freemasonry evolved from stonemasons and stonemasons traveled for work, so they could learn the stonemason trade in England, but then travel to Spain, France, Scotland, even North Africa to actually apply their trade and to perform their services. They were taught not only to be, or not just to be respectful of the laws of the country where they lived, but any countries through which they are traveling to respect both the laws and the customs. Um, right? That's a social civic responsibility. You are encouraged to be charitable, both to your brothers and outside of your brotherhood. And that doesn't just mean charitable with money, that means charitable with forgiveness, with time, with understanding, with patience. Um, you are encouraged to make a daily advancement in Masonic knowledge very often. Um, you are also, by the way, one of your responsibilities is not to protect a brother Mason if he is committing crime. So if you discover that a brother is, calls you up and says, "I need to help me bury this body," you are to call the police. Um, but if it's something that's not criminal and doesn't put anybody at risk, to keep your brother's confidences. So, I mean, I would say certainly Freemasonry encourages you to act in a manner that's socially responsible. Whether the Mason does or not is kind of up to that Mason. Freemasonry can't force anybody to fulfill any responsibilities. It can only point you in the right direction. Um, I don't know what a branch Davidian is, bloated underscore toad, but please hit like and subscribe. I do not know I do not know what a branch Davidian is. That name sounds vaguely familiar, but I can't place it to save my life. I'm looking it up right now. Oh, the Wacko people from Texas? Okay, well, probably not, because I feel like they would be a pain in the butt to deal with. I feel like they would end up, because I feel like they would end up just branching off and starting their own Masonic group, and then it'd be a whole pain in the butt to deal with. Okay, cool, Dr. Zeus. I'm glad you went down to check them off, or check them out. Again, if you want to learn more, my advice is always, if you're going to check out a Masonic lodge, bring with you a letter which has your name and contact information. That way, if they're not present, you can leave the information there, and they can contact you when they're free to discuss. Hello, VH5. Waco, not Waco, Waco. All right. By the way, Texas has its annual communication coming up soon, so I'm sure it's going to be packed. Supposedly, supposedly it is absolutely growing like crazy. The numbers. I guess it's 10 days to go. I'd love to get there. It's just, and I mean, it's cheap. It's just getting to Texas getting to Texas is not hard. I think the annual communication is in Waco as well, right? West coast of New Zealand. That is awesome. While you're making me jealous, suddenly I wish I could be there. Um, because I love Texas. And I also love mountains, so I'd love to be in New Zealand. One of my favorite things actually is Taskmaster New Zealand. I honestly think, I'm just going to say it, Taskmaster New Zealand is better than British Taskmaster. Well, yeah, Mr. Keeps, that is fair. Um, I'm sure you've seen a lot of mountains in the last little bit. But anyways, Dr. Seuss, what did you think when you checked out? What did you think when you checked out your local lodge? Wow, I'm sure it's beautiful. Yeah, I couldn't go anyways. I have something happening on January 16th, so can't do anything there. All right, guys, let's give it a bit more time. Let's wait to see who joins. Take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. Well, usually I wait an hour in. There's actually a really great blog on James Monroe from the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic Jurisdiction. Oh, so they sold their building. Okay. It might just be because your town is so small, um, or you're not even your town, just the waterfall. There's not a sufficient number of people that the lodge could have closed down. When that happens, sometimes the building actually gets torn down, which is a shame, or it just gets abandoned. But sometimes the building gets sold to another group or individual, or in this case, a lady who, maybe purchased it in the 90s or purchased it from someone else who purchased it. And there's many times when I've been wheeling in a new town and discovered a Masonic facade, a building with the square and compasses on it, but it's no longer a functioning Masonic temple. I actually once found it was somebody's house. It actually, they had purchased, it was a smaller temple, and this couple had purchased it from the Masons in the 50s and actually turned it into like a residential home. A cornerstone, sometimes it's just the square and compasses are on the facade. I mentioned it before, but a famous example of it would be Jimmy Kimmel from his show is filmed in a Masonic temple, and on the facade of it, it still mentions it still mentions, what's the quote? Freemasonry builds its temples in communities and the hearts of man. So that was really, really cool section. No, like Solomon's Temple? Or are there Masonic artifacts? I mean, it depends how you would define artifacts. I don't actually know much about the archaeology surrounding um, King Solomon's Temple, right? Which was the first, which was obviously the first temple. To my knowledge, there is no physical remains of King Solomon's Temple, at least no direct evidence, because it's on the Temple Mount. You can't excavate there. There is, I guess, some indirect support. Just looking quickly at a um, overview. There's actually an article, which might be kind of fun reading. You know, was King Solomon's Temple a real place? Many archaeologists have hunted for evidence to support or refute the ancient biblical stories about Israel, but the first temple in Jerusalem and its builder, King Solomon, remain shrouded in mystery. This is from December 9th, 2020. Now, that's King Solomon's Temple. There are many, many Masonic relics that exist. I mean, there are past masters' jewels and rings and coins and pins, some of which date hundreds of years, if not more. There's documentation, there's Regius poems and manuscripts. I mean, it's really interesting. A lot of museums will have Masonic relics in them and not even realize that they're Masonic necessarily until a Mason comes in and points it out. So that's really cool. Music or lyrics? Lyrics probably, because lyrics you can make them musical, right? You can, as you're reciting lyrics, even if there's no music, with the lyrics you can, especially if you're a good singer, you can sing the lyrics and such to emulate certain notes and tempos and rhythms. With music, you can't do the opposite. With music, there's no way to mimic lyrics or lyricism. Actually, that might be kind of a fun topic as well, Mr. Keeps. Was King Solomon's Temple a real place? That'd be fun to ask the question, see what people say, and read what the answers are. So, James Monroe, again, this is from the Scottish Rite, Northern Masonic Jurisdiction. Explore the inspiring life of Brother James Monroe, the fifth president of the United States and the second Masonic president after George Washington, whose leadership and commitment to unity reflect the enduring values of Freemasonry. As he said, national honor is national property of the highest value. President James Monroe, first inaugural address. As a Freemason, President James Monroe sought to bring Americans together in the spirit of harmony and purpose, even envisioning an end to partisan politics entirely. His commitment to bridging division echoed our Masonic values of brotherhood, collaboration, and the pursuit of common good. Brother Monroe is part of a distinguished line of presidents who were Freemasons, including brothers George Washington, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry Truman, and Gerald Ford. Okay, Near, that's no trouble. I mean, I love music, don't get me wrong. For me, music is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. Like these leaders, Monroe brought the principles of the craft into the public sphere, embodying leadership and fraternity during critical moments in American history. Brother Monroe was a key figure in shaping the early United States, bridging the Revolutionary era and the foundational years of the Republic. He held numerous roles, including ambassador, governor, senator, and cabinet secretary, which helped him develop a broad understanding of the nation's needs. Before Brother Monroe became a symbol of unity, he faced challenges that shaped his character and instilled in him a sense of duty and a commitment to public service traits that would later align seamlessly with his Masonic ideals. Actually, you can sign up for a famous Masons email series through Scottish Rite Northern Masonic Jurisdiction blog. I would suggest you guys check that out. That's a very brief overview. I can go into the more specifics. James Monroe, specifically the Monroe Doctrine. So the symbol with the compass and the G on it, that are called the square and compasses. It's kind of the longest standing symbol of Freemasonry. There's also some evidence that it's not just a Freemason symbol, but actually a stonemason symbol. It's just our symbol. Most lodges have it trademarked. From Britannica. James Monroe was born April 28th, 1758 in Westmoreland County, Virginia. He died July 4th, 1831 in New York. He was the 5th president of the United States. His important contributions to U.S. foreign policy was the Monroe Doctrine, a warning against European nations intervening in the Western Hemisphere. The period of his administration has been called the Era of Good Feelings. Monroe's father, Spencer Monroe, was of Scottish descent, his mother of Welsh descent. The family were owners of a modest 600 acres hectare in Virginia. At age 16, Monroe entered the College of William and Mary. In 1776, left to fight in the American Revolution. He crossed the Delaware with General George Washington for what became the Battle of Trenton. Suffering a near-fatal wound in the soldier, Monroe was carried from the field. Upon recovering, he was promoted to captain for heroism, took part in several additional battles, and became an aide-de-camp to General William Alexander. So what's interesting is George Washington was a Freemason. I'm wondering if when he was with George Washington as a lieutenant, they discussed joining Freemasonry. In 1780, he resigned his commission and studied law under Thomas Jefferson, then governor of Virginia. He also developed a friendship with James Madison. He retired from Congress in 1786, began practicing law in Fredericksburg, Virginia. He was chosen a member of the Virginia House of Delegates in 1787, and in 1788, a member of the state convention at which Virginia ratified the new federal constitution. In 1790, he was elected to the U.S. Senate, where he vigorously opposed President George Washington's administration. Nevertheless, in 1794, Washington nominated him as Minister to France, excuse me. I think that brings up a very interesting point as well. You'll notice what they said there, right? James Monroe opposed the presidency or the administration of George Washington, and yet George Washington, and at this point, both of them were brothers, both of them were Masons, agreed to or appointed him as minister to France. So I think there's something worth discussing there, right? Worth considering. It's the idea that within Freemasonry, you can have disagreements in politics. You don't discuss politics in lodge, but two brothers can disagree about politics. They can disagree about religion. They can disagree about any number of things. However, that will not stop a level of mutual respect between the two of them. And I think that's really important to remember, right? So much so that you can, one Mason can oppose the administration of another Mason, but that will not stop the other Mason from appointing him to a position within his government. So I guess just keep that in mind and let that be a reminder to you, right? That it is possible to disagree politically and still exist within a spirit of brotherhood and respect and kindness. So I just think that's worth trying to keep in mind. If you can. Hold on just one second. I want to check something quickly. I think especially because unfortunately in 2025, It's unfortunate that many people feel as though you actually can't get along with people who disagree with you politically, and it's unfortunate that that happens to be the case. But yeah, I'm just checking something quickly. And I'll be right back to talking, I promise. Interesting. Okay, so going back to what we were discussing, James Monroe, the Britannica Encyclopedia. So Monroe was elected president 1816. In 1817, the First Seminole War begins over attempts by U.S. authorities to recapture a black runaway enslaved by people living among the Seminole people of Florida. Monroe signs the Missouri Compromise, or if you will, the Missouri Compromise. Um, Monroe issues a foreign policy statement known as the Monroe Doctrine. 1825, Monroe retires after a second term. So as he was, set up as or appointed a minister to France by George Washington, it was a hope of the administration and his Masonic brother, George Washington, that Monroe's well-known French sympathies would secure for him a favorable reception and that his appointment would also conciliate France's friends in the United States. His warm welcome in France and his enthusiasm for the French Revolution, which he regarded as a natural successor to the American Revolution, displeased the Federalists, the party of Alexander Hamilton, which encouraged close ties not to France but to England at home. Monroe did nothing, however, moreover, to reconcile the French to the Jay Treaty, etc., etc. Monroe returned to America in the spring of 1797 and in the following December published a defense of his course in a pamphlet of 500 pages entitled A View of the Conduct of the Executive in the Foreign Affairs of the United States. Washington seems to have never forgiven Monroe for the stratagem, though Monroe's opinion of Washington and Jay underwent a change in his later years. In 1799, Monroe was chosen governor of Virginia and twice reelected, serving until 1802. The Louisiana Purchase. There was much uneasiness in the United States when Spain restored Louisiana to France. The Spanish district, under administrator's subsequent withdrawal of the United States' right of deposit at New Orleans, the privilege of storing goods there for later shipment, greatly increased this feeling and led to much talk of war. Well, Victor, you can also hit the like and subscribe button. Resolved to settle the matter by peaceful measures, President Jefferson in 1803 appointed Monroe envoy extraordinary and minister plenipotentiary to France to aid Robert R. Livingston, the resident minister, in purchasing the territory at the mouth of the Mississippi, including the island of New Orleans, authorizing him at the same time to cooperate with Charles Pinckney, the minister at Madrid, in securing from Spain the cession of East and West Florida. On April 18th, Monroe was further commissioned as the regular minister to Great Britain. Monroe joined Livingston in Paris on April 12th after the latter's negotiations were well underway, and the two ministers, on finding Napoleon willing to dispose of the entire province of Louisiana, decided to exceed their instructions and effect its purchase. Accordingly, on May 2nd, 1803, they signed a treaty with two conventions. I think this is worth discussing because Lou, I did not ever have to sacrifice my legs. I was born without my legs. I don't know where this comes from or where people are getting this idea. I promise you, I was born missing my legs. I never had them. Total Tech, thank you. Victor, are you hitting the like and subscribe button? That's the better question. So we know that James Monroe was a Freemason, and at the time he was in Paris regarding the Louisiana Purchase. We know that he had been a Mason for several years. There is conflicting evidence as to whether Napoleon. Well, thank you, Ryan. I'll do my best. With this face, it's hard. We do know that Napoleon. There's conflicting information as to whether he was or was not a Freemason, to my knowledge. But we do know that he had brothers who were Freemasons, and his father-in-law was a Freemason as well. I've talked about this before. Like, to what extent does having, you know, Freemasons within government positions assist in negotiations, assist in lowering temperatures? Are you more able or better able to negotiate with someone in an opposing government, even if those governments are opposed to one another, if you are both Freemasons, right? Well, Lou, I would not, there's no chance I would sacrifice my legs for Freemasonry. And if anybody were to suggest it, they should go to jail. You know, suggesting sacrificing any body part for Freemasonry. It's not how it works. You know, one of my favorite movies this year, it's called A House of Dynamite. And there's this great scene. So if you've never seen the movie A House of Dynamite, basically America detects a missile over I think it's over the Pacific Ocean, and they discover that in 20 minutes from when they first discover it, it's going to land and hit Chicago. And they believe it's a nuclear weapon, and it's going to basically destroy Chicago. And they have 20 minutes to decide what to do and how to respond. Or I guess technically the president has 20 minutes to decide what to do and how to respond. So there's this one scene where the Deputy Minister of Defense gets a phone call from his counterpart in Russia. I guess it'd be like the Russian minister. And obviously, Russia is quite nervous because they're concerned that if America blames them, and by the way, just on a side note, nobody knows who launched the missile. They didn't detect the missile launch. They just detected it when it was already in the air. And so Russia is obviously quite nervous that America will blame Russia and choose to retaliate. And then Russia is concerned that if America retaliates against them, even though Russia is swearing they didn't do it, Russia will have to retaliate back, and then it's nuclear war. And so they're talking to each other, and at one point, the American says to the Russian, look, if we get this wrong, nobody's alive tomorrow. And because nuclear war, right? And it made me think, if they had both been Freemasons and both had somehow known that the other was a Freemason, would that have made them trust each other more? Would they have been better able to communicate? Would it have would it have given them a better sense of the trustworthiness of the other? I don't know. And there are plenty of historical anecdotes that cut both ways. Famously, George Washington and King George were both Freemasons. Didn't stop the Revolutionary War from happening, but famously as well, Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Winston Churchill were both Freemasons, and they got along swimmingly, if you will. So, and helped create a united front against Nazism. I'd be really curious if I could ever find any examples of negotiations between government officials who were Freemasons actually resulting in the cessation of either stopping a war or stopping a military action before it happens, or resulting in the early cessation of hostilities before it got too bad. I mean, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I'd be really curious. I mean, I guess you count Monroe and Napoleon, or Monroe and Livingston, Paul, please hit like and subscribe. No, it was not. Fox Box, that's a political question. Freemasonry is not political. I've said it before, and this is me speaking for myself personally. I I have my concerns about what happened in Venezuela. Does this now give China the right to do the same thing to the Taiwanese? What about Israel for that? Like uh, I find it somewhat concerning, but I don't know what the answer is. Craig, I mean, I don't, he is. I'm not sure if I like the term open Freemason. He is a Freemason. I guess open in the sense that, yeah, he talks about it. There are some Freemasons who choose not to, which is fine. They don't have to talk about their Masonic connections or Masonic membership, but Shaquille O'Neal does talk about it. He was actually made a Mason on site by a Prince Hall jurisdiction. Foxbox, please hit like and subscribe. Uh, I'm not sure. So, Freemasonry, Foxbox, is decentralized. There is not a single governing body, so every jurisdiction has different rules. I can tell you my favorite view on trans and Freemasonry is the Grand Lodge of England, which I believe was 2018, put out a statement that said if you are, let's say you are assigned female but transition to male, you can join the Masonic Lodge on the fraternal side. If you are transitioning the other kind of way, assigned male but transition to female, you can join the Order of Women Freemasons. And if you join but then transition, you remain a Mason. I think the United Grand Lodge of England has the best approach to it. So the result of the deliberations was a treaty signed December 31st, 1806, which contained no provision against impressments and provided no indemnity for the seizure of goods and vessels. Accompanying its signature was a British reservation maintaining freedom of action to retaliate against imminent French maritime decrees. Monroe returned to the United States in December 1807, elected to Virginia House of Delegates spring 1810, chosen governor. He resigned to become Secretary of State under James Madison, a position he held until March 1817. The direction of foreign affairs in the troubled period immediately preceding and during the War of 1812 with Great Britain thus fell upon him. Famously, and again, this goes against my thoughts before, there was a ton of Masons, including generals, on both sides of the War of 1812. There is stories of Masons recognizing each other in battle and showing mercy, but that's not the same thing as like diplomacy and cessation of hostilities. So Craig, I've never heard of the 50% thing. I don't think he does that. I could be wrong. I know he does a ton of charitable work. Don't get me wrong. He's very charitable and good for him. I think it demonstrates a great deal of kindness and Masonic virtues. He has the store in Nashville. I've never heard of this 50% thing though. But he is a Mason and he's also just a wonderful country singer. I like his stuff a lot. So in 1816, Monroe was elected President of the United States as a Republican candidate, defeating Rufus King, the Federalist candidate. He was reelected in 1820. He had all electoral votes but one. The chief events of his calm and prosperous administration, which has been called the Era of Good Feelings, were the First Seminole War, the acquisition of the Floridas from Spain, the Missouri Compromise, by which the first conflict over slavery under the Constitution was peacefully settled, recognition of the new Latin American states, former Spanish colonies, and most intimately connected with Monroe's name, the enunciation in the presidential message of December 2nd, 1823, the Monroe Doctrine, which has profoundly influenced foreign policy in the United States. It was, I guess, under James K. Polk that Monroe's statement as a doctrine appeared. It came into common use in the 1850s. The principles of President Monroe, as the message referred to in Congress, consisted of three openly proclaimed dictums. no further European colonization in the New World, abstention of the United States from the political affairs of Europe, and non-intervention of Europe in the governments of the American hemisphere. In the diplomatic correspondence preceding the proclamation of the principles in the President's message was a fourth dictum not publicly associated with the doctrine until 1869. The United States opposed the transfer of any existing European colonies from one European sovereign to another. Um, on the expiration of his second term, maybe Fox. I'm focusing on James Monroe. I think you asked about horror experiences. Do you mean like horror conventions where I went to check out some really cool horror stuff, or do you mean like horror movies, or like I'm not sure what you mean by that. So on the expiration of his second term, what's up, good guy activism? Monroe returned to his home and a state called Oak Hill in Northern Virginia. In 1826, he became the regent of the University of Virginia, and in 1829 was a member of the convention called to amend the state constitution. Having neglected his private affairs and incurred large expenditures during his mission to Europe and his presidency, he was deeply in debt and felt compelled to ask Congress to reimburse him. In 1826, Congress finally authorized the payment of him $30,000. Though many Masons find themselves in debt, I found many Masons are not the best at, their purse. So, after his death, Congress appropriated a small amount for the purchase of his papers from his heirs. Monroe died in 1831, like Jefferson and Adams before him, on the 4th of July in New York City, at the home of his daughter Maria, with whom he was living after the death of his wife. I would love to see those papers. I bet you there's some really cool Masonic papers in there as well. Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, John Quincy Adams, and many other prominent statesmen of Monroe's time. I haven't gone anywhere. You two, I've been doing this often. Possessing none of their brilliance, he had nevertheless, to use the words of John Quincy Adams, a mind sound in its ultimate judgments and firm in its final conclusions. Some of Monroe's popularity undoubtedly stemmed from the fact he was the last of the Revolutionary War generation. And he reminded people of those heady times when the struggle for independence was in the balance. Tall and stately in appearance, he still wore the knee breeches, silk stockings, and cocked hat of those days. Many of his admirers said he resembled his fellow brother, George Washington. Interesting enough, in his cabinet, I believe there were a couple of Freemasons. If I recall correctly, let me double check. Oh, so he was not a Freemason, John C. Calhoun. Adams was not, if I recall correctly. Let me double check. Actually, could have been. Let me double check that as well. Right now, what I should do is just memorize the list. I think he was actually. Oh, he was a prominent opponent of Freemasons. So that's where I got it mixed up. That's a very valid point to keep in mind as well, though. When you think about it, John Quincy Adams served in the cabinet of James Monroe. James Monroe was not only a Freemason, but a very active Freemason. And he brought into his second term of office John Quincy Adams as Secretary of State, who was opposed to Freemasonry. So there's an interesting point there as well. Not only can Masons get along with other Masons with whom they have political disagreements, such as George Washington appointing James Monroe to be the minister to France, they can also get along with non-Freemasons who are opposed to Freemasonry, such as John Quincy Adams. So that's cool as well. Certainly, John Quincy, certainly, and his first term as well, John Quincy Adams was Secretary of State. Certainly, John Quincy Adams' opposition to Freemasonry did not affect the Masonic presidents that came after him, such as Theodore Roosevelt, Taft, Roosevelt, both Roosevelts, um, Truman, Lyndon B. Johnson, Gerald Ford, many others. Well, I'm 42 and I've never been married. Linking out is people are getting married a lot later in life nowadays. Like Bill Burr, one of my favorite comics, got married in his late 40s. I think he was 45 when he got married, 46. I've heard of that, Craig. I heard of that. Cameron's a great name. It's a great name indeed. Well, I think he did because he had like the medical condition of being that tall. Um, there's a list. So the next president after Monroe, who was a Freemason, was Andrew Jackson. Then you had James Polk, Buchanan, Johnson, Garfield, McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, Taft, Harding, Roosevelt, Truman, LBJ, Gerald Ford. So that's just some interesting ideas about James Monroe. His name is popping up lately because you have the quote unquote Monroe Doctrine being referenced by President Trump. He actually referred to it as the Monroe Doctrine, I think making a pun, the idea that it's finished. I don't know, again, what's going to happen in Venezuela, but I think, you know, President Trump has been, it's interesting throughout his presidency, referencing past presidents who were Freemasons. The first one was McKinley. He referenced him in relationship to um, tariffs and use of tariffs to raise revenue, and then he's lately been referencing James Monroe. So I think that's kind of interesting in a way. Donald Trump is not a Freemason, just for the record, but it's interesting that the two ones that he references very frequently are, in fact, both Freemasons. Uh, happy. I mean, I think you should do what makes you happy. I don't think you should get married just to get married. I think you should get married if you love someone and you want to share your life with them. How you determine whether you love someone and whether whether like I'm the worst person to give relationship advice. So again, let me just give you the general piece of advice, which is do what makes you happy. I don't think you should get if you're you should get married because you love somebody, you want to share your life with them. This idea of running to get married because you think it'll make you happy. If you're not happy with yourself, I don't think getting married will make you happy. Um, so I guess that's the best advice I can give. And that's true also, by the way, for free. Um, um, I think that's all true for Freemasonry in the sense that, look, if you're unhappy with yourself and you don't like yourself, this idea of joining Freemasonry to make you happy, that's not the case. That's not going to make you happy. You need to find happiness within yourself first, and then you bring that happiness with you to Freemasonry. Because Freemasonry is like anything else, there are challenges with it, there are challenges to it. It's not automatically going to make you happy. I mean, one of the phrases I've said before is the man makes the apron doesn't make the man. If you think I'm going to join Freemasonry and I'm going to be happy, no. You need to find happiness within yourself. And then you use the happiness you found within yourself to fuel your pursuits, whatever they may be, whether they are Freemason, Masonic pursuits or otherwise. And you have to fall in love with all of it, right? You absolutely have to fall in love with all of it. The good times and the not so good times. one of the biggest dangers I think you can have is to think some external thing, even Freemasonry, will make you happy. We're going to give it a bit more time. We're going to wait to see who joins. I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about James Monroe and the Monroe Doctrine. I feel like it's very often being misused as of late. So, in terms of what it actually means, right? It doesn't mean that, in my opinion, it doesn't mean that Freemasons can do just anything, or sorry, Freemason. It doesn't mean that America can do whatever it so desires in the Western Hemisphere. I think what it originally was meant to be is if a European country is attempting to colonize the Western Hemisphere, um, America has the right to try to stop that colonization by retaliating or blocking either, the actions of the European country itself, even in the oceans, or to stop them from getting there, or in the country or the colony or proposed colony, for whatever it's worth. All right. I don't like where I'm at the moment. I've never been there. I can't speak to the Karachi city in Pakistan, but what I would say is very often, at least what I have found is people can, the goal has to be find happiness within yourself wherever you are. And again, this could be place, this could be group. There's this, I met people who have this idea of like, I'm not happy because I live here. So if I move here, I'll be happy. I'm not happy because I'm lonely. I'll join Freemasonry. I'll find happiness. In my experience, the focus, the goal needs to be first and foremost on finding happiness where you are and with yourself. And if you can do that, happiness will follow you wherever you go. So that's my best advice. Again, I don't know. Now, obviously, there are exceptions, right? Clearly. Like, if you are in a country that's experiencing war or famine, then forget about happiness. You need to focus on shelter and your safety. So I'm not suggesting it's always a matter of the internal qualifications of happiness. What I am suggesting, though, is, all things being equal, if you have your basic safety, food, and shelter dealt with, then it becomes less and less likely, in my experience, that moving will make you happy. What's up, your local Spurs fan? Thank you for being here. And part of that also comes from recognizing the good things that you have within your life, right? That is something I had to learn. As well. Like, it's very easy in life to focus on the problems that you have, and not focus on the good things that you have in your life. I'm very lucky. I have a lot of incredibly good things in my life that I'm very lucky to have. If I didn't, if I don't focus on those things, I tend to get more negative. So one thing I do every night, I try to anyways, is I think to myself, okay, what is going on well within my life? What am I, what's one good thing that happened to me today? And honestly, almost every day I can find at least one good thing that happened to me. So and I would suggest maybe linking Atlas. That might be something worth doing, is every day when you go to sleep, before you go to sleep, try to think of one good thing that happened. You'll probably find something. At least in my experience, you'll probably find something. Right now, I'm trying to figure out if there are any. I feel like there's a Masonic event happening today. I just can't think of where it is. In Michigan. So your local Spurs, how's it going? Thank you for being here. I hope you'll take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button to anybody watches for the first time. We were talking about James Monroe because he popped up a little bit in the news. Before we talk about Freemasonry in Venezuela, um, if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, let me know, positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. I hope everybody is having, like I said, an excellent day. Monday, the first Monday of 2026. So hopefully it's a good Monday. I was about to say it's 5 days in and it's a great 2026, off to a great start. I made it to over 100 concurrent viewers a little while ago. That was really wonderful. So yeah. Trying to figure out. I could have swore there was some type of Masonic meeting happening in Michigan, but I can't think of it now. By the way, congratulations to Michigan, the celebrating 200 years of Freemasonry. So I know they're planning a lot of really exciting events, which I think is awesome. I hope that they have an excellent year. I'm going to try to make it to Michigan a fair bit because, again, if they're celebrating their 200th anniversary, talk about the fun, how much fun it would be to go check them out and hang out with them. So yeah, that is my goal, is to spend more time in Michigan this year. Feeling awesome. Well, feeling awesome, not preoccupied. That's a really interesting Masonic question, which I'm going to get to. Please hit like and subscribe, by the way, if you can. I'd appreciate that. Good evening, Adam Cook. I don't know if there are lodges. I could look it up, linking. So, feeling awesome. What I would say about that is, I don't think you should ever be, I try not to ever be preoccupied. I wouldn't use that term, with the feeling of death or with thoughts of death. But certainly within Freemasonry, we are encouraged to consider our mortality, and consider what it means to be mortal, right? Because at the end of the day, whether you are 59 or 29 or 19 or 99, right? Death is coming for us all sooner or later. And remembering that, it can help us in some ways consider, how we can best live, how we can best use our time. It can, I think, put within us a certain level of gratefulness to be alive. So I'm not preoccupied with it, but I do think about it. Without question, I do very often consider it, as a reminder of, and also as a reminder not to take things quite so seriously, right? Like, we're all on the way out. Everybody we like, everybody we don't like, everybody we love, everybody we hate. They're all on the way out, and we are as well. In 300 years, 200 years, honestly, 100 years, none of this is going to matter at all. So maybe instead of getting nervous about things, we should just learn to relax a little bit. One of my favorite memes I saw was, it was a picture from space. It was like of the universe. And it was, it was one of those things where it was like a trillion miles away. So Earth was this tiny little blue dot in this vast, universe, vast galaxy. And there's an arrow pointing to that blue dot. And the arrow said, "This is where you are crying in the shower because your friend was mean to you." And the whole point of that was, like, just relax, really none of this is that important. And when you recognize none of this is that important, it can free you and motivate you to understand that if nothing is important, then everything is important. Everything matters. The smallest act of kindness has as much effect as, the biggest act of kindness. Therefore, do those small acts of kindness. Help other people. Be kind. Because if none of it matters, then all of it matters. And if all of it matters, then all of it is worth doing. So there you go. I hope that made sense. I got that idea from Angel, the television show. So if you get the chance to check it out, it's one of my favorite TV shows. Well, no worries, feeling awesome. You're welcome. And like I said, I hope you'll consider liking, subscribing, checking out other videos. Consider doing a super chat. Just 99 cents helps the channel big time. Well, hiding the hand, that's not really, putting a hand over one's heart, that could be but that's really just a symbol for almost any time you take an oath of any sort, right? Like when you, for example, there are many oaths or symbols where you put your hand over your heart. So I would not assume automatically that it is inherently Masonic. I wouldn't know for sure. So yeah, for whatever it's worth. Horror stories? Again, are you talking about stories about the horror genre? Which, I've been to so many different horror conventions and I love them all. Or are you talking about specifically like where I've been scared or horrified? Because, I've never really had any horror stories. Now, I've done three, and I've loved them all. I've done three, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I've done three paranormal investigations at Masonic temples, two in Windsor, one, two in Windsor, and one in Johnstown in Pennsylvania. I loved them both. It was a blast. They were really fun. But I always take scary things in horror, not literally, rather as metaphors and rather as things I enjoy. And also potentially economic money makers for Freemasonry, in that you can, have ghost tours and ghost events at your Masonic building. I know many Masonic buildings that actually do have ghost investigations. So, well, because it's saying nothing matters and saying everything matters is exactly the same, right? So, like, one of the challenges is, again, we live in this giant universe. So if I'm walking down the street or wheeling down the street and I see somebody who needs a meal and I give them a meal, I give them leftovers, I buy them food, whatever it is, right? That doesn't, in any meaningful sense, that doesn't matter, right? The action of that, it doesn't make any difference to 99.9999999% of the universe, right? It would not be measurable in any way. However, so you could say, well, it doesn't matter. However, it matters to the person who got the meal. And it probably matters to the person who got the meal just as much as if I had $1 million and gave $1 million to a charity, right? Like we have this tendency to try to. The closest way I can think of it is, if you know Marcus Aurelius, who did the Meditations, for Stoic philosophy. I like his stuff. He pointed out, like, people are so concerned about dying young and not wanting to die young, right? He said, look, if you consider all of time, whether you live 30 years or whether you live 130 years, it actually would make zero difference in the grand scheme of things in terms of how long life is. So he said, instead of worrying about how many years you have, just try to enjoy the years that you have on earth and try to use them to live in accordance with nature and do right by those around you, right? Because this idea of just latching on to every year of life, you could to gain every moment of life you can, lock yourself away in a padded room and never take any risks and never take any chances, right? But that's not any fun way to live your life or any valuable way to live your life. So whether you live 30 years or 130 years, it really makes no difference in terms of the grand scheme of time. And because of that, instead of worrying about how long you live, just worry about trying to be the best version of yourself you can be. Same thing with doing good deeds. Do whatever good deeds you can do, and don't worry about ranking them compared to somebody else, right? Don't think to yourself, why should what difference does it make if I help this one person? There's a million people that I can't help. It's like, yeah, but instead of thinking of it that way, think about it as this action matters. It matters as much as the millionaire who gives all his money to charity. It matters just as much as the person, instead of thinking about it in terms of less charity, more charity, just be charitable, right? And consider it all equal. So maybe it's not so much that nothing matters to everything matters, it's that everything matters equally, right? And if everything matters equally, then the goal should be to be as good and charitable as you can, if that makes any sense. Meditations is an incredible book. Stoic philosophy is really great, right? I think I like Stoic philosophy a lot. Freemasonry does borrow a ton from Stoicism, more so than a lot of people realize. Um, but I think substance and because the question of mattering, it goes both directions, right? Like I remember, I'm doing well, Daryl. I hope you're doing well also. I remember when I was a probation officer, right? One of the biggest challenges I had when talking to people was, so I was a probation officer just after you must have deserved it. And if you think you did it, that's okay too. My rules. I was a probation officer just after the bank crash or the bailout, the subprime mortgage crisis. And one thing that happened very often is if I had somebody on probation for theft or for robbery, um, they would say something to the effect of, the banks, defrauded people out of billions. I stole a few hundred, a few thousand. Why am I punished and the people in the jails or the people in the banks aren't? And it's like, he has a valid point, but that's no way to live your life. You don't compare the good or the bad. You just treat it all as equally relevant. So you just because your neighbor steals $1 million doesn't mean you are then free to steal $500 and make yourself feel better by comparing yourself to your neighbor, right? Or, again, and I heard some stuff as a probation officer and in jail, the idea of, with domestic violence, the idea that it's, domestic violence, trying to excuse it by minimizing it. Minimizing, by the way, is one of the biggest defense mechanisms people have. So saying something to the effect of it's not a big deal. I just shoved her, or I just did this. Other people do way worse. Other people do these terrible things, right? And to me, it's like that can't be the way you view it. Because once you start to think that way, it's incredibly easy to excuse a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, right? My neighbor stole 5 million, so I can steal 500, who cares? Well, then why can't you steal 600? Then why can't you steal 700? Then why can't you steal 800? Then why can't you steal a million? You know, you have to say, practically speaking, and that's the same reason why it's important to not consider scale on both sides of it. If you do something wrong, you do something wrong. You shouldn't worry about whether other people are caught or not caught. You just worry about yourself and run your own race. Same thing with good acts, though. It's very easy for people to think I shouldn't be charitable because my charity will not solve the bigger problem. Be charitable anyways if you can. With intelligence, don't be foolish, but be charitable anyways, right? Don't worry about what other people are doing. Just run your own race. And so when I say nothing matters, therefore everything matters, what I mean is everything that you do should be viewed as a reflection of yourself and not compared to other people. Because not everybody has the ability to be, to give $1 million to charity, but you have the ability to be kind to somebody that you meet. You're having a bad day and you stop off for a coffee. You have the ability to be nice to the person making your coffee, to say thank you, to give them a compliment. It's a little thing, but it matters. And honestly, in my opinion, it matters as much as giving $1 million to charity. Good day, Random Solver. Yeah, well, so Adam Cook, legal matters is the key. If a Mason were to call me and say, if a brother were to call me and say, I've killed somebody, I need you to help me hide the body, my response as a Mason is, and should be, I'm going to call the police. I would probably encourage them to turn themselves in first and say you should turn yourself into the police to give them a chance to do the right thing. But if they refused, I would call the police and advise the police of what had happened. Because within Freemasonry, we are taught, or it is illuminated, that we are not to, protect another brother who's committing a crime. And that's been the case forever since stonemasons, and that is to protect the craft from disrepute. Well then, Daryl, don't do that. Random Solver, good day. Well, thank you, Mr. Keeps. It's an argument that's not black and white. I'm not sure if my neighbor stole 5 million, you're going to blackmail him. Well, you should not blackmail somebody. I don't think I guess I'm a little bit Kantian in that respect, in that, like the argument of, well, I'll blackmail. So if somebody commits a crime and I find out about it, I'll blackmail them and then use that blackmail to gain concessions that I can use to make the world a better place. That does not seem like a good plan in the long term, because what is to stop that person from them blackmailing you, right? So I know somebody committed a crime. I say, I'm going to blackmail you and make you give me all your money or give all your money to charity. And in exchange for that, I do the good thing. Well, now he's got something on me though, because now he knows that I know something. He can just blackmail me and say, you didn't go to the police, so you're now an accessory. It cycles forever and ever. Limousine riding, private jet flying, alligator shoe wearing, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. And I'm having a lot of trouble keeping all these gators off me. Ric Flair, I did go over my head for a second. Very sorry I missed it. I thought you meant wheeling as in because I'm in a wheelchair, which would be fine with as well. But I thought you meant I'm in a wheelchair. Well, I mean, it's a valid response if by valid, you mean rational, right? Because rationality ultimately is kind of one of the few types of justice that exists. So, for example, an irrational response to finding out that your neighbor committed a crime would be, I'm going to blackmail him in order that, and by doing so, I will develop the ability to fly to the moon, right? Well, that's irrational. The decision, I'm going to blackmail him and use that money to help others, that's a rational decision in that it makes sense, it's possible, and it's logical progression, but it's incomplete in that it does not think about the long-term consequences or how likely it is that you will end up just getting blackmailed yourself. Um, well, no, there's no such thing as an irrational valid response. That's the point, right? There's irrational responses, which is responses that are divorced from reality or rationality. Um, again, it's like something can be rational but damaging, or the wrong approach to take, right? It's rational, for example, to say, I'm going to sell drugs to make money, but it's not good, it's not right. It's rational in that it makes sense, it's logical. Um, if you do X, you may get Y, but it's bad in that there are other considerations that are not being considered, such as the violence, the likelihood of an early death, incarceration, harming other people, by the way, making the world a worse place, etc., etc. Well, you may respect the Brotherhood, but you're incorrect, right? Freemasonry is not hiding anything which others, quote unquote, deserve to hear. Freemasonry has its private elements, and if people want to learn what they are, they can join Freemasonry. Um, Again, Daryl, right? The response I always have is, would you put in the chat your bank account information or your health information? Um, right? Or other personal information to yourself, right? Or if you were a business, would you put online, proprietary information that could affect your business? Or if you were a family, would you put online a family recipe? Um, well, you can, but I'd rather you don't, and I can always just remove you from the chat, right? So keep that in mind, Daryl. Um, Nothing is black and white, Eddie. Nothing is black and white. I don't believe in black and white. I believe in, again, as Mr. Keeps pointed out, utilitarianism, right? Meaning I believe that our responsibility is to, in any given circumstance, figure out what the best action is that harms the least number of people and proceed with that. Um, Gray, Eddie, gray. Yes, spirit of justice. How's it going? Thank you for being here. I hope things are going well for you. It is the first Monday of 2025, so I hope you're having a great 2025. And thank you so much for being here. Please take a moment. Well, I don't know more than the normies. I'm not a fan of the term normies, but I do know more about my experiences and um, my knowledge within Freemasonry, right? So I've got 20 years of direct in-person experience, thousands of meetings, and not just thousands of meetings, but thousands of meetings around the world. As a consequence of that, I am going to push back if I feel like people who are not Freemasons themselves are, saying things with which I disagree or are not within my experience. Well, objective advice, I mean, at the end of the day, there's no such thing as objective advice. There's subjective advice, but I give you my opinions based on my experience. Um, and you can take it or not take it if you so choose. Spirit, how's it going? Though, again, within Freemasonry, I certainly think I have the experience to give at least pretty decent advice, but I always try to caveat it by saying, at the end of the day, It's my advice. Maybe you don't want to take it, and that's perfectly fine. And that's perfectly reasonable. I'm a 33rd degree Freemason. Well, welcome again, Eddie. Thank you for being here. I hope everybody is doing well. Please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. It's been so long since I've been a young adult, and the world is so different than when I was a young adult. I don't even know what age I would say young adult. Civic institutions matter more than you think. So try to at least think about or consider joining a civic group. It could be Freemasons. It could be um, it could be Rotary. It could be Elks. It could be Moose. It could be Demole. Could be Rainbow. Join a community group or a civic organization. That stuff is really, really important and really matters. And it matters more than you think. When you're young, you still have a lot of your friends from high school. You don't tend to realize that those friends, as much as you may wish they didn't, those friends will, friendships change. Civic organizations, civic groups give you long-lasting friendships. So, um, I'm the most normal of all of you. Well, let's not be insulting people. I never said I'm normal, by the way. I take my abnormality as a source of pride. Um, so that's my advice to young adults. I mean, I know about Randall Carlson. He's a pretty cool dude. I like the fact that he says a lot of positive things about Freemasonry. He kind of pushes back against some of the conspiracy nonsense, especially on Twitter, or X, if you will. He has a tendency to be very positive towards Freemasonry and push back. I mean, people get to decide for themselves what's normal and what's not, and who's normal and who's not, right? You don't get to tell others if they're normal or not normal. Let the people decide for themselves if they're normal. I mean, I am not normal, but I take that as a matter of pride for whatever it's worth. So, yeah, Daryl, once again, my stream, my rules. I may put you on mute again for a second. We shall see. I don't want to. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I don't know a ton about Randall Carlson, but I do appreciate the positive things he says about Freemasonry. To my knowledge, he talks a lot about kind of this idea that there exists an ancient, um, civilization that pre-existed modern humans. I don't believe, um, um, I don't believe in that stuff. I do not represent Freemasonry. I represent my views on Freemasonry. I represent my thoughts and my experiences within Freemasonry. There are other Freemasons who are completely different than me. That's why you should never judge Freemasonry by a single Mason or single Freemason. You should judge Freemasonry based on meeting with multiple Masonic brothers. That's also why you should never try to join. Yeah, I'm going to put Daryl in a bit of a timeout. That's also why you should never join Freemasonry if you like if you know a single Mason and you think that's a really good dude, I should join. That's great, but you should get a chance to know other brothers in the lodge. And by the same token, um, if there's one Freemason you've met and you don't like him, you should never assume because of that one meeting, all Freemasons are negative, right? Like, that's not how it operates. That's not how it works. Oops. I put the wrong person in timeout. Sorry, Sanjeet. I very much apologize for that. I can't get you back out of it for now. Um, yes, very sorry. about that. I put in the wrong person. Sorry, Sanjeet. You'll come back on soon enough. Although, having said that, I don't know who the boring guy is to which you refer, but is it me? Um, we got a couple of people on timeout. Again, I try my best to not time people out because if my goal is to talk about Freemasonry, then and my views on it, then part of that means I need to talk to everybody, including people who are trolling and who are kind of being jerks, right? Because I still want them to hear what I have to say. And who knows, maybe in the process of them hearing what I have to say, they will kind of change their minds or end up with a more positive view of Freemasonry. I have no idea, but I think it's worth exploring as an idea. Um, that can happen as well. Within Freemasonry, we are encouraged to put our families and our jobs ahead of Freemasonry. So you should be spending more time with your family than with Freemasons, but that doesn't always happen. Some people really prefer to spend all of their time with Freemasonry and at an expense to their family. And what I'd say is, you don't want that to be the case. If you can, at any way, shape, or form, not allow that, you should. But it's hard. I mean, I don't have a family, but I've definitely had those situations where I put so much of myself and so much of my time into Freemasonry, um, that it's affected friendships and other parts of my life. I guess what I'd say is you have to find a way to find balance. And it's really, really tough and it's really hard. I don't know necessarily what the answer to that is. Um, but yeah, I'm very sorry that the dad spends. I mean, I grew up with a Masonic dad. He did spend a lot of time at Lodge, but I will say, when I grew up and joined Freemasonry, I realized what he was doing and why it was so important. And I had a more sympathetic view to why he was spending so much time at Lodge. And it definitely gave me a new perspective on being a child and seeing my dad at Lodge so much. But I was lucky that my dad did try and, bring me somewhat into the Lodge, Christmas parties, special events, all that stuff, which was really, really fun. So, yeah. But it can happen. I mean, but that can happen not just with Freemasonry. It's very easy to develop, shall we say, it's very easy to develop, shall we say, um, negative, to spend so much time focused on one thing that you do so at the cost of other things, family, friends, whatever it might be, your own health as well. That can absolutely take place. So you need to be really careful about that. Kevin Jones. No, it is not. Health is wealth. I agree with that 100%. Flacco, would you happen to be the person with the like and subscribe button? Health is really important. I've said this a million times. I think we as Freemasons need to do a much better job of taking care of our health and encouraging others to take care of their health. So yeah, I guess what I'd say is health is absolutely wealth. I agree with that 100%. And I do think we have a bad habit of not caring for our health and our well-being. There's ways that we in Freemasonry can be better. Well, let's hope not, because I'm on the front lines if that happens. Please hit like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much for being here. Yeah, I find it can be hard to not be triggered. I try my best to not be triggered, but it does happen. Um, but you got to understand if you're going to be on social media, that is just the price that you pay. is triggering. So yeah, I am, unfortunately, it's part of this thing called being a Freemason. So, or not being a streamer more than being a Freemason. Being a streamer, people are going to say some stuff, and you need to find a way to handle that if you want to do this. Or you may decide you don't want to find a way to handle it, and therefore just don't be on stream. Um, well, thank you, Adam Cook. I appreciate that. I do my best. I don't always succeed, but I absolutely do my best. Ayush Singh, please hit like and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. I hope that you are doing well also. For the time being, though, we're going to give this a little bit more time. Please, as always, take a moment, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and thank you all for being here. I mean, Freemasonry in some ways is a clothing brand at this point, right? Like, there are so many Masons who put their T-shirt, who put this symbol or their lodge symbol on clothing, on T-shirts, on whatever it might be. It's pretty crazy. You are welcome, Linking Atlas. So we're going to be ending this stream soon. I do plan to be back on tonight around 1 a.m. or so we shall see. I mean, I've known Masons who smoke weed. I don't smoke it myself. What I would say is the general rule is within Freemasonry, we're taught really to obey the laws of the country in which we are either living or passing through. So I suppose I would say it depends on the country itself. And if the country has any specific rules, let's say pro or anti, whatever the rules are, you should follow those. I understand there's some, government or some psychological, like I understand some therapists recommend certain types of substances for therapy. So I guess I'd also say it very much depends on the doctor and what the doctor is prescribing. Um, but there's no like Freemasonry. There is no specific, there is no Masonic position on, for example, like people ask, what is the Masonic position on X, on Y? There really isn't Masonic positions in that sense. I've said it before, there's about 850,000 Freemasons in the United States. You'd have to ask all 850,000 of them what their view is on these different things. So you just kind of need to keep that in mind, I guess, is what I would say. We're going to give it a few more. Wait to see if anybody else jumps in the chat to say hello. And please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. I mean, look, if somebody can find a sense of enlightenment or receives health benefits from substances, my advice, though, is always, and what I've always said is, you should talk to a doctor. I'm always been a little bit more, and this is me personally, on the wary side of substances, whether that be illegal or legal substances, illicit or otherwise. Even going down to caffeine. And as someone who loves coffee, and I do love coffee, I do still truly believe that there is a value to being careful with how much caffeine you consume, power drinks, energy drinks. That includes pain medications, even over-the-counter stuff like Tylenol. That includes medications that's prescribed by a doctor. That includes alcohol. So I'm always saying, like, it's valuable to try to be, I guess, cautious about these things. Talk to your doctor. Be careful. Jamie and Michael Moss, thank you for being here. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you will hit that like and subscribe button, and thank you for joining. I hope your day is going well. That is true also. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Hello, happy travels, Jamie. Please hit like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Well, devotion you need to be careful about. It's kind of like that old quote, patriotism is often a virtue of the vicious, which I think might have been said by, no, it's said by Thomas Jefferson. The point is, devotion is good, but you don't want to allow your devotion to anything to become a point where, it becomes, shall we say, problematic in some ways. No, but again, it's my stream, my rules. I'm trying to find, I think there's this, I think Three Oaks is having a first degree tonight, but I can't find the information. All right, Daryl. Let's just put you in a bit of a timeout again. I think you're struggling a little bit there. I think it might be worth taking a bit of a break for yourself, maybe relaxing a little bit, having some deep breaths. You need to keep in mind, right? It's you need to relax a little bit. Sometimes people just get excited. It's okay. It's okay. It happens. Um, I will take it. Ron Perlman is a handsome individual, and he'd also be rich, so I'd love to be Ron Perlman's son. But no, I am a son of a Mason, though. By the way, please hit like and subscribe. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And let me know how you are doing. Free. Now we're setting a hashtag for free Daryl. That's where we're at the moment. That's fine. That's fine. Here I am just hanging out, and I'm getting told to free Daryl. Why must it be so hard? 5 minutes. CD, cyclic discipline. I would not use the term I would use the term a. Freemasonry is an epicenter for all that is good in the world, but it is not the epicenter. You can find what's good in the world through many, many other avenues. Freemasonry is simply one of many. And it's not for everybody, but I do believe it can absolutely be um, I do believe it can absolutely be a epicenter for what's good in the world, without a doubt. Right now, just here, free the YouTube one. I mean, I've never known any CEOs who are Freemasons. I'm not saying there aren't any. I'm sure there are plenty, but I do not know of any off the top of my head that are Freemasons. What I would say is, in my experience, when most people join Freemasonry, they start to act no different from before they joined till after they joined. Meaning, again, Freemasonry is not going to take you if you're a bad person and make you start acting good. Nor if you're a good person is going to start making you act like that's not what it's all about, right? What Freemasonry is all about is, yeah, I've said it a million times. It's, the Mason, so the man makes the apron doesn't make the man. Meaning it's up to you to be a good person. And if you are, Freemasonry will give you more avenues and more knowledge through which you can express that goodness and work to be a better person. Cyclic discipline, other avenues. Oh, cool, Mikey UCC. Then I do know a CEO who's a Freemason. That's awesome. Good for you. I mean, cyclic discipline, almost any avenue, right, can be a pathway to virtue and to goodness. Team sports. I think that's a huge one, right? Team sports is absolutely one of the ways that you can develop knowledge in what is good and true, because you're going to learn about things like teamwork, not cheating, physical fitness, caring for yourself so you can help others. The reason you have to be healthy in a team sport is so you can ensure that you are treating others. You're there for your team, right? You need to be healthy and play your best for the good of the team. Right? And so that's something you need to keep in mind as well. It could be your knitting club, right? Where you join the knitting club and you make friends, you learn certain skills and abilities, patience, attention to detail. These are all moral lessons that come from a variety of sources. So I never believe that there's a single path to enlightenment. And Freemasonry also teaches that through, for example, religious tolerance. So you need to keep those things in mind. So there is no such thing, Serene, as a Freemason's Bible. What you're thinking of is usually just a King James Bible that is, stamped with a square and compass on the cover. And has a place for people to sign that they were present for a brother's initiation, passing, raising, and then is given to the brother as a gift. Right? Freemasonry is not a religion, so there are no commandments within the Freemasons' Bible. Any commandments, quote unquote, that, well, fair enough, cyclic discipline. Any, idea of Masonic commandments, really what that means is, it's things you will just learn and are illuminated through the act of being a Mason. So, for example, if you belong to a football team, there are no football team commandments, but there is kind of the unofficial commandment that teamwork is important. Don't cheat. Keep yourself physically fit. Practice. Within Freemasonry, it's the same idea. Tolerance is going to be a pretty important virtue. Dedication, volunteerism, commitment, the value of tradition. Those are all illuminated as part of being a Freemason. Well, Mike, you hit the like and subscribe button. Cyclic discipline, your knitting club, they are positive human values, and you can find positive human values illuminated in a number of different areas and organizations, not exclusively Freemasonry, is my point. I am a Freemason because for whatever reason, Freemasonry speaks to me. Um, but for other people, sports may speak to them. There are no unique, well, I mean, there are no, again, there are no commandments within Freemasonry because I would say the closest thing you have is, a not even a commandment, but a request at the end of the day. That's all it is. A request that you keep things, you keep private information private. Um, so I don't know anything about Skull and Bones other than I understand it's a fraternal organization out of Yale. So that's really all I know about it. Can't really speak to anything else. I guess what I'd say is I have no issues with Skull and Bones. I just don't know anything about them. That just means it's a vote, and the person is who's applied for membership is declined admission. So to blackball someone means the lodge rejects their application, or at least a sufficient number of members reject their application to join. Um, I can't imagine that's true, Serene, because I feel like if that were the case, there would be some police investigations into Skull and Bones that would no longer exist. I think you got to use a bit of common sense with this stuff, right? Like, you can't really, if a fraternity is going around killing former members for leaving, the police are gonna find out about it pretty quickly. Um, So, Eddie, the requirements, there's three requirements. The first is you need to be of the required age. In the States, it's usually 18. In Canada, it's usually over 21. You need to believe in a supreme being, and you need to approach them and go through the application process, which means talking to them, meeting with them. They learn more about you, you learn more about them. At some point, you get an application form, and you can maybe get some sponsors, and you go from there. So you need to be of the correct age, you need to believe in a supreme being, and you need to approach the lodge and express your interest in joining. And then you need to go through the application process. And the application process is as much about the lodge getting to know you as it is you getting to know the lodge. So a lot of people can take it as like like, why is it taking so long? Why can't I just do this quickly? Especially in 2025, everything's done quickly. Um, you really have to just be willing to take your time. Welcome, Buffalo Chicken. It's usually, I mean, it depends on the jurisdiction. Again, I don't want to give specifics because it depends on the jurisdiction and it's different. In some cases, it's one. In some cases, it's you need at least two. It doesn't usually go by majority. But what you want to keep in mind is there's a good lesson in that, which is, try to keep on everybody's at least good side or decent size. Don't be a pushover, but remember, the person you are a jerk to today may be a member of the Masonic Lodge and vote on you tomorrow. So you need to keep that in mind. Um, so I mean, there's a good lesson in that as well. You never know what's going to come back and bite you if you're not careful. Square Incomes Promotions is on fire. Thank you so much for that. I hope you'll take a moment. Please hit that like and subscribe button to anybody who's new to the stream. We are growing this channel a lot, and it's thanks to everybody who helps support it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. No, it's not reasonable, and I don't think that should be your goal either. But I also think you should not go out of your way to have it be the opposite and have, basically, I think you should try to live your life as you would anyways without concern with what others think. And if in the process of this, um, more people like you than don't, then that's probably going to result in at least a bit of a smoother life down the line. So oftentimes, whenever I've been coming through, it was always two that you needed. but there may have been changes in rules, but it was always two. A person could get through with one. I'm designer, by the way. Awesome. Definitely. I mean, I'm always thinking about branding, and I always think about like, what could I do to, because I have my Patreon. By the way, Mikey UCC, Adam Cook, Eddie, please join my Patreon. You can join for free, or you can join for a set amount, but if you join for free, that helps out a lot as well. It's patreon.com/square and compass. So please jump on and say hello. I'd appreciate it very much. It's absolutely possible to, I'm trying to think what the word is that I would use. With the Patreon, I'm always trying to think of new gifts and new special items for members. T-shirts has been something I've thought of. So it's patreon.com/square and compass. Let's see what my numbers are right now. I have, hello, Daryl, once again. Well, I do think, well then, please take a moment to become a subscriber to this channel. Once again, Gooey, I appreciate being here, but don't call me Pastor. Hello, Daryl. Welcome back. I do think sometimes within these streams, within Freemasonry, like we hear constantly hearing guarding the West Gate, don't let people in who might disrupt the harmony. Sometimes when I hear that, it sounds like me. Sometimes being reserved is a good skill, Daryl. It would be a bit like me saying, like, I'm exclusively going to date supermodels if they've been on the Victoria's Secret's catwalk or something. Like, there are no supermodels presently trying to date me, so maybe I should be a little bit more, open and a little bit less choosy, right? If a supermodel does come up and start to try to date me. So, well, Daryl is not a liar. I don't think that is the case at all. But yeah, like guarding the West Gate, that's a really interesting discussion. And honestly, it would probably be fascinating to actually do some type of, because I have my concerns about this idea of guarding the West Gate, Mikey UCC. Gooey, no talking about other people on the stream. So if you say that again, you're going to be put in timeout, Gooey. So calm down. Just focus on talking about me. Well, I mean, I wouldn't describe it as all sunshine and rainbows. What I would describe it as is a civic and community group. Well, it's not secret because I'm here talking about it, but I'll give you the reasons, Serene, why I keep the private elements of Freemasonry private, for whatever it's worth. And there are three reasons. The first is it's like having a family recipe. If you have a family recipe that's passed from your grandparents to your parents to you plan to pass that family recipe down to your kids, you're not going to share the recipe with the public, not because there's anything negative or bad about the recipe, but because if more people know the recipe outside of your family, it's going to reduce the connections you have with your family members. Within Freemasonry, ultimately, what we pass down to our brothers is a ritual. And if I share it with people who are not Masons themselves, what happens is, at the end of the day, it affects the relationship between my family members or between my Masonic brothers, who are a type of family. The other reason I don't share the private nature of our ceremonies is, well, but we're all family, whether it's a family of 100, a family of 1 million, a family of 20. The other reason is because Freemasonry is not the same everywhere. So what that means is, yeah, but thousands more leave it every month too, is if I share the ceremonies that happened within my Masonic uh, career, the best case scenario is I've now given a spoiler to someone who's interested in joining, which will negate their experience. They're not going to enjoy it as much, just like having a spoiler for a movie. But something that might be even worse is they hear me give the ceremony. They think they know what's going to happen. They join a lodge in a different jurisdiction or in a different area where there's completely different rituals, or at least relatively different rituals. They go into it expecting certain things to happen, which means they're not present. Instead of paying attention to what is happening and the lessons that are imparted or the brotherhood aspect of it, they are in their own mind thinking, this isn't what I thought would happen. This isn't what I thought would happen. And they're not present mentally for the initiation. And that is also very bad because it stops them from enjoying and being present and feeling what the initiation is all about. There's this quote I really like, which is happiness equals reality minus expectations. If you are expecting something, you're likely to be less happy in your life. Well, I mean, I will say I know many people who have revealed well, not personally, but I know many people who revealed the secrets of Freemasonry. None of them, to my knowledge, they just went on with their lives. So, um, there have been, I mean, at this point, honestly, the secrets are already out there, but it's not about what's already out there. It's about me and my actions and behaviors, right? Just because somebody else has done something with which I disagree or disprove, that doesn't mean it's something I would do, if that makes sense. So you need to keep that in mind. But yeah, those are the reasons that I choose not to discuss or reveal the secrets of Freemasonry. Well, Serene, it doesn't just differ from nation to nation. It differs from state to state in some cases. So, the Masons and it's not even lower degree, it's just Masons. The Masons in Texas are under the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of Texas. The Masons in New York are under the Grand Lodge of New York. The Masons in Ontario are under the Grand Lodge of Ontario. The Masons in, so in some cases it's state by state. In some cases it goes by country, like, England, Scotland, Israel, France. But it just depends on the jurisdiction. There has been talk in the past, in the very far past, of creating a national American Grand Lodge, but that never happened. So yeah, it's one of those things where there is no single governing body for Freemasonry. In Asia, there is Freemasonry in Jordan, though it is somewhat looked down upon. Freemasonry, to my knowledge, is banned in Iran, in UAE, in Iraq. So it just depends on where you're at. But there are Muslim Freemasons, like Morocco, for example. Many other places, many Muslims in North America join Freemasonry. I'm sure it's banned in North Korea. I'm sure it's banned in North Korea. Maybe one day, who knows, we'll see Freemasonry in North Korea. Maybe, who knows? Who knows what the political situation will be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years from now, right? I don't think anybody knows. Well, there's plenty of books on Freemasonry, Adam Cook. I mean, my suggestion would be for anybody interested to check out the book Freemasonry for Dummies by Chris Hodap. It's a great resource. It's a great place to start. It's absolutely worth exploring. So, or reading, I should say. It's not that expensive. Yeah, Serene. Freemasonry Dummies. It's written by Adam or Chris Hodap, excuse me. It was written at a time when like the X for Dummies titles were super prominent. So you had like everything, like was this cooking for dummies, wine for dummies, architecture for dummies. You had all these different like groups and organizations or all these different books, and it was like this topic for dummies, ancient Rome for dummies. So I do not, but it's a great place to start. I always suggest it because it's just a great place to start. If you don't know anything about Freemasonry, um, and you're looking at a good place to start, Freemasonry for Dummies is and that's why it was printed, right? So I just like the book, and I would recommend it. Uh, I'm not sure why. It could be that they were just too busy. I guess what I'd say is you can always try a second time. Um, Again, don't even talk about it as like applying for. Just look at getting more information, right? That's what's important. Just look for getting different information about Freemasonry and about the lodge and get to know the guys. Um, I mean, Freemasonry Dummies is a start, but honestly, you could go for 20 more decades and still not study everything about Freemasonry. Um, well, the gathering for networking, I don't know if I'd want that to be the main goal for joining. It's a byproduct for sure, and it's important, but it's not the most important thing in Freemasonry, right? Expanding your social circle just to have a bigger social circle is good. Just joining all the way from Nigeria. Welcome, Mustafa from Nigeria. Thank you for being here. Please take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. I don't have New Year's resolutions, but I did give a suggestion a few streams ago of Masonic New Year's resolutions that you could have, and I hope you'll consider, if you are a Freemason, having them. Humans are contradictory by nature, Eddie. Humans are contradictory by nature. My favorite dish? No, well, there's no Masonic New Year, but there is Masonic New Year's resolutions. And what I mean by that is resolutions you make about your Masonic career. So it could be to visit more lodges, it could be to learn more about Freemasonry, it could be to spend more time in contact with the lodge, it could be to pay your dues early. I don't mean Masonic New Year, I mean for the regular New Year, thinking about Masonic ways to improve in Freemasonry. So, and there are some, even some little ones like resolve to contact your Masonic Lodge secretary and ask them um, if they have your correct contact information and it's up to date. A lot of times people don't do that. So, I don't know. Welcome, D. Jones. Please hit like and subscribe. I don't know much of anything about the cult of Mithras, so I can't. I mean, I really enjoyed ancient Roman history. I always really did, but I don't know much about ancient Roman history in terms of the cult of Mithras. I mean, I don't believe any of that stuff in terms of like it still exists and it runs the Pope. I think that's silly. I mean, the Western Roman Empire ended what 452, 453, something like that, maybe 450. The Eastern Roman Empire or the Byzantine Roman Empire made it for another what 1,000 years, something like that. But it's been a long time. Well, a cube has three: depth, width, and height, unless I'm mistaken. And you're going to say like four, and then to figure out what you mean. We are going to be, I think, ending this stream right now. And I will take a moment to once again remind everybody or ask everybody to please, excuse me, hit that like and subscribe button. I hope everybody is having a great day or great night. And yeah, I will see everybody very soon. All right, talk to you all later. Have a good night.